So today we're talking about teaching around physical limitations, and specifically the limitation of the thoracic spine, right? So we know, because you look at great golfers and you see this rotation of the thoracic spine. And you see a lot of players have this beautiful backswing turn, and then even turning through is just, if not more important. But what happens if your thoracic spine is limited, and say even your arms, or what we call your lats, are limited? So this is your lat muscle that runs all the way down your back. And there are a lot of players that have not only thoracic limitations, but also lat limitations. So let's talk a little bit about the lat, and then I'll come back to the thoracic. So anytime I'm trying to get the club up in the air, which creates width and can create power, I need lat range of motion. Now, here's the problem. A lot of times with my lats, when I raise my arms up like this, if you arch your back, that's a problem. If I raise my arm up and you notice that, hey, I've had a shoulder injury on my lead side, this one goes up really easy, but this one tends to bend, or there's some kind of restriction, well, think about that, how that could relate to my golf swing. Because my lead arm, I'm trying to get my lead arm up in the air and create this great width. But what happens if I have a limitation and there's nothing I can do? It won't go any higher. Well, a lot of times the right arm will take over and it will lift the club. So this is where we can get into these issues where the left arm stops, the right arm lifts the club, and you'll see players with a very, what we call, flying elbow, or you'll see them across the line at the top of their backswing. This would be down the line. This would be a little bit laid off, but you'll see this position at the top of the backswing. So whenever you get unusual positions at the top of the backswing, I've got to look at the lats and make sure that those are moving correctly. If for some reason I have lats that are restricted, then I've got to look at the joint below, which would be the wrist joint, right? Because if I've got a restriction with raising my arms, maybe I can get the club up in the air by setting my wrists, or by maybe bending my arm. That's going to make it a little more difficult to time, but it'll at least get my arms up in the air. So those are teach-arounds, right? So a lot of times golf instructors, they'll run into a problem with a player. They'll try something and it doesn't work, and then they'll try something else and it doesn't work. And this is why golf can get so confusing. All the more reason you need to know what your body can do. And this is the basis of our work at the Titleist Performance Institute, is understand what your body can do, and then we can build a golf swing around what you do, or we can change your body so you can build the golf swing that you want. And we've got thousands of TPI certified experts around the world that can help you do this. If you just simply go on our website, mytpi.com, put in your zip code on Find an Expert, and there's someone out there pretty close to you that can help you with your limitations. But if I do have a limitation in my lat or getting my arms up in the air, the first thing I usually do is I try and get a little bit more wrist set. So if I get a little bit more wrist set, I can keep the arm short and more out in front of me, but I can still get the club back like you can see here. And that is a great way to play. So anytime there's a limitation, don't fight it. Try and look at the joint below it or above it and find out if it'll move. So let's now go on to the thoracic spine. So the thoracic spine, if it's limited, what might I be able to do? Well, I could look at the joint below it, which is my hip, or I could look at the shoulder joint, because getting my arms across my body or getting more hip rotation might actually help my thoracic rotation if it's limited. So say you are tight turning on your backswing. Then what I could do is I could simply go, well, let's try and get it out of the hip. I might fan my foot a little bit. I might drop my foot back a little bit. But now if I do that and I can get some rotation below, that actually might give me a better turn going back. Even though my thoracic spine is restricted, I'm using the joint below it, my hip joint, in order to turn. The other thing I could do is, if I'm limited in my thoracic spine, I could keep my arms soft and allow my arms to go more across my body. So more of what we call a one-plane swing, which a great instructor by the name of Jim Hardy talks about one plane and two plane. But if I allow my arms to go more across my body, I can still get the club around me, even though my thoracic spine is a little limited or restricted. So those would be backswing fields. If my thoracic spine is limited going this way, then there's a couple things I can do. So anytime I'm limited in going towards the target, then maybe what I should do is open up my hip, and you'll see some players that move their foot. That's part of pushing against the ground, but it might also be a way to allow them to turn because of a tight thoracic spine. So if I simply fan my foot, fan my knee, fan my hip open a little bit, maybe even aim a little bit more left, that will actually aid me in turning through the golf ball. So again, anytime you have a restriction, ultimately we want to find out why you have that restriction. And that's where a TPI certified expert can come and do a physical screen and help you. But if we're going to teach around it, look at the joint above, look at the joint below, see if you can get more mobility out of that joint. It'll take some pressure off that area. But ultimately we want to fix this. But if not, there's a few things for your tight thoracic spine and your tight lats.